She had decided to parent. Go figure.
Imagine thinking that you're entitled to someone else's baby. What's up, you guys? If you are new here, hi, my name is Jess. I'm a person in long-term recovery who has, in fact, been to prison. It's not a flex. It's just a fact. If you want to follow me on any other social media platform, TikTok, Instagram, Patreon, that is in the description box down below. But today we're going to be talking about a couple that is trying to adopt, and they've had 3 failed adoptions. She's going viral for this for like all the wrong reasons. But without further ado, let's kick this thing off. Let's watch the video, shall we? I'm sure it's great.
Our adoption fell apart because of a conversation that we weren't even in the room for. Before a birth mom is discharged, a social worker has to have a conversation with her to make sure she understands her rights and isn't being pressured in any way, and that the adoption plan is truly her decision.
I'm just gonna stop her right there. You're not supposed to be in the room when those conversations are happening because your presence is pressuring the parents. The mother has just given birth, but we're gonna get into that.
Has to have a conversation with her to make sure she understands her rights and isn't being pressured in any way, and that the adoption plan is truly her decision. The caseworker asked the birth mom if she felt comfortable answering the questions in front of her family. Now, this birth mom was what I would call a yes girl. She never voiced her own opinions. She was always looking to defer to anybody else to make decisions. So of course she said yes, not realizing the kind of questions that she was about to be asked. Then the caseworker starts asking her things like, do you have family support in front of her own family? Why are you choosing adoption? Do you feel like you've had enough time to think about this decision? Do you understand that you're not required to sign anything today? Has anyone pressured you to make this decision? After the caseworker finished asking all of these questions, she stormed into our room and said, I need to speak with you. They stepped out of the room into the hallway, and my husband ran up to the door to listen to see what was happening. He heard the counselor saying, you've had 10 minutes with her and you chose to ask her very personal questions in front of her family that has now compromised her decisions and influenced her. And you're making a formal decision that she can parent based off those 10 minutes? She was mad. She said, I've been working with her for the last 3 months and she has repeatedly told me that she is not physically or mentally in a place that she can handle this. After that conversation, the agency counselor went back into the birth mom's room to clarify what she wanted to do moving forward. The birth mom said she just wanted to be discharged from the hospital. She was ready to go and leave, and however she needed to do that, she was willing to. The caseworker told her the only way she could leave the hospital was to take the baby home with her, which just wasn't true. So she agreed to take the baby home with her that night, and she said she would sign her relinquishment papers in the morning. Meanwhile, we obviously got discharged too. We went to a hotel and watched the Super Bowl and waited for the dreaded call the next day. She had decided to parent. Go figure. And the baby that we had just spent the last 36 hours believing was ours never came home with us.
So there's a lot going on there, right? The adoptive parent, they're not supposed to be in the room because adoption agencies learned many, many years ago that, hey, if we bring adoptive or hopeful adoptive parents to the hospital, it's not about skin on skin. It's about the birth parent feeling pressured in that situation to continue on with their decision and just say yes and give them the baby. Also, buying kids is weird, and I don't like the adoption process. It's highly predatory. But her videos just come off as so entitled, and that is what really irked me today. You're not entitled to someone else's baby. Also, having done a little deep dive on this person in particular, she struggles with infertility and tried IVF. Adoption is not a band-aid for not being able to have your own child. Now, I understand the frustration of that and the heartache with that, and even the trauma with that, because there's a lot of cases where people can't conceive or they have several miscarriages. I understand that. This comes across as predatory. When you give birth, your entire chemistry changes. I mean, when you're pregnant, your brain gets smaller. Like, there's so many things that happen to a woman when she is carrying a child. When you give birth to that child, oh my God, it's like euphoric and crazy, and I can't even explain to you the protective mama bear instincts that I immediately had the second Micah was born. Like, suddenly it was just me and her. The world didn't exist, time stood still, and that sounds cheesy and lame and all that stuff, but that's real, and it's coded into our DNA to be protective, to protect or children. Like, it's in there, and it's a very strong feeling. I don't think that 48 hours is enough time to decide if you really want to move forward with adoption. I also really don't like the whole adoption agency situation because we're buying kids. Like, let's be so for real. We're talking about $50,000 to a baby. Like, you're buying a child. And more often than not, parents contemplate this because they can't afford the child. And if money's the only issue, why are we not just helping that parent? Why are we like, oh, you can afford this kid? Let me buy your kid. I want to explain another layer as to why I think this couple in particular, or she's posting these videos, why she is predatory, and that's the vibe that I'm getting, is that not only has she posted these people's stories, like very intimate details of why they needed to go the adoption route that are none of our business, no one's business at all, she's also posted the babies that are not hers. So you don't get to adopt this child, 3 of them, and you're posting them on the internet, and these videos have gone hella viral. She's not blocking out their faces, nothing to protect them at all, and I don't see how that's legal. I don't see how that's ethical. I don't see how that's okay. I have several friends that do foster care. I know people in my personal life that were either adopted or tried to adopt, so I'm pretty well versed on the topic. And just from like a foster care standpoint, the rule is you're not allowed to post while they're in foster care, but you could potentially post if you wanted to later. None of my friends do that. One of my really good friends since high school, she's got 4 boys, and she's just the most incredible mom, and she doesn't think so, which is wild because she is a goddamn superhero. But one of the foster kids that came into her house, she was so in love with him, and reunification is the goal. It is the goal. And she will never post his story, never post his face. She could. I mean, legally she can. She shouldn't, and she won't. That's a green flag. Now, this potential adopted mom that's posting these babies that are not hers, red flag. Horrible. To be completely real, if it wasn't for the videos of the actual babies, I'm like, is this satire? Like, this bitch is kidding, right? She's not. Let's go to a follow-up video.
Figure out if these were red flags or if this was just us being paranoid.
Oh, there's a red flag, sis. But it's not the one that you think it is. It's you.
Working with 18 and 19-year-old birth parents that we had never met before. And the birth mom had been counseled by the agency back in December and started creating this adoption plan. The baby was due at the beginning of February. The birth mom already had a 1.5-year-old, and her husband was getting ready to enlist in the Navy, which meant she was going to mostly be raising her son by herself, pretty much as a single mom. She told us that she chose adoption because she didn't feel like she had the resources or the mental capacity at 19 years old to raise 2 kids. At the time, all of this made sense to us. But when we got to the hospital, little things started happening. The birth father ended up staying at the hospital all weekend, even though originally he had said he wouldn't be able to be there at all. When we asked our caseworker, how are we to best navigate the back and forth, she said, the baby will stay with you, and when the mom wants to see the baby, she'll just ask the nurse for the baby back. That all sounded fine. But then they started keeping the baby in the room for 5 or 6 hours at a time while we were just in the other room just sitting and waiting. And
it's their baby.
Members started showing up to the hospital and just hanging out in their room for hours. After being in the hospital for 36 hours, the birth mom kept asking about being discharged. Before the 48-hour wait period she was going to sign, which meant she would either need to sign a third-party release form for the agency to have custody of the baby, or she leaves the hospital with the baby and then she would sign the next day. So you tell me, honestly, would you have seen those as red flags? Because when the hospital caseworker walked out of the birth mom's room after interviewing her, we immediately knew something was wrong.
That is a successful parenting story of a very young person having her second child, having a lot of fear and anxiety, and she was unsure about how she was going to navigate a second child. That is completely normal. And what an incredible story that the father was able to be there and her family was there by her side, and they helped her feel secure and safe enough to parent a second child, because that's really hard at any age, but especially when you're that young. So that's a great story. I'm glad that those parents decided that they could do this and they had the support to do this. I really don't like adoption agencies, if I haven't been clear about that. And just to kind of talk about my lived experience, I had my first daughter while I was incarcerated. I was incarcerated almost the entire time of that pregnancy, and there would be people that came to the jail and then eventually prison that wanted to basically buy my baby. It's either that or they go into foster care and then they try to like fearmonger over that and like whatever. We are talking about people in very, very vulnerable situations, people that don't have access to a lot of resources, people that don't have a lot of family, people that are incarcerated. You're preying on vulnerable ass people to buy a baby. This especially makes me sick because there are over 400,000 kids in foster care that need good homes. Also, why does this bitch need a newborn? It just all around gives me the ick. So in one of the comments that I made, someone posted this picture of her. She's MAGA. Do with that information what you will. So another layer to adoption is like the birth parents have to choose you. And it just sounds like they are not choosing this couple for a reason. And a mother's intuition is so fierce and so strong, especially after she gives birth. And I know that they choose each other. I guess every state is different. But I had a very close person in my life try to go the adoption route with her now ex-husband. And that birth parent did not want that couple having the baby. And they chose a different couple. And that was for a good reason because they eventually would get divorced. It was just bad energy. To circle back to her being MAGA, she also lives in the state of Texas. And after overturning Roe v. Wade, there have been numerous deaths because of pregnancy and because they don't have access to the healthcare that they need to save their lives. I don't think she's still trying to go the IVF route, but I really hope that if that happens and the fetus is not viable, I hope she can get the healthcare that she needs to save her life. I don't wish dying over that on anybody. Let's watch another video since I have you all here.
We were sitting in the hospital room. The baby's father looked at me and said, "So, are you excited?" And I remember pausing and thinking, that's kind of a strange question for me to answer.
No, it's not.
Here I am. Of course I'm excited.
No, it's not strange at all, actually.
Pausing and thinking, that's kind of a strange question for me to answer. Here I am. Of course I'm excited, but also feeling very cautious. How was I supposed to answer this question? Because adoption starts from loss, and they were about to lose their child, and I was the one that was going to be taking their child away. So there's this weird juxtaposition in the hospital room where joy and grief are sitting side by side.
Yeah.
And something I had never heard anyone talk about before was how to best navigate the dynamic in the hospital room with the birth parents. Originally, the plan was that the birth mom and her sister would be at the hospital and we would be in the delivery room. And here I was speaking to this 18-year-old birth father who wasn't even supposed to be there.
Teenagers, and he had every right to be there. It's his child. Wasn't supposed to be there is crazy work.
The baby happened to be born on a Saturday where he didn't have to work, so he ended up coming to the hospital later that afternoon. Because there's this 48-hour waiting period, everything sits with this really heavy tension for 2 days while the baby goes back and forth between the rooms. On one hand, you want them to have time with their baby because they're about to experience such loss, and you want your child to know that the birth parents love them enough to hold them and take care of him. At the same time, you start to feel this protectiveness growing in you because this is your baby and you want to bond with him.
Nope.
So who holds the baby? How long does the baby...
You shouldn't be at the hospital, and I hate that they do this, but your only purpose for being at that hospital is so that the adoption agency can use you to pressure the birth parents. That's it. If she really wanted to parent, I don't see why she couldn't decide to be a foster mom and open her home to children that are in desperate need of good homes. This is her bio. And I know this is like mean and shitty for me to say, but she continuously talks about God's will. This is God's will. God will give us a baby. You're not entitled to anyone else's baby. But also IVF is not God's will. That's science, sis. And maybe God's will is for you to not be a parent. Let me know what your comments are in the comment section down below. I am dying to hear what you guys think about this person and her failed adoption, successful parenting stories that she is sharing online. I did try to report the videos of the babies because she's not trying to block out their faces or anything. She's not trying to give them privacy. And she, on top of that, posted one of these families' stories, and she was super fucking racist in how she was describing who they are. And again, showing the baby, but she was like, oh, we'll call this person Pablo. Oh, we'll call this person Burrito. Like, it was just microaggressions and shitty all throughout it. But should she share the babies? Should she share their personal stories? Am I being overly sensitive about this? I don't think I am. I don't think I'm mad enough. And I've been upset all day over this. But I'm going to end today's video here. As always, I love you guys. Stay safe. Stay sober. Whatever that looks like to you. You're not entitled to someone else's baby. And I'll see y'all in my next one.